one tiny little decision can lead you to a completely different reality or future. And most of those realities that we would want are getting blocked constantly through capitalism, mostly, or just self-interested evil people.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If the two of you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Hey, I'm Scott.
I'm Spencer.
And guys, what is the name of your band?
We are Mlke.
Do you guys spell that with any special characters?
No, I mean we've flirted and had fun with that before, but it ended up then getting published in a local newspaper because we used a Latin.
It was a lambda, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we used a Latin character to kind of mirror the actual hand-drawn logo, and in the paper they said, "Oh, we're," without asking us, said, "Oh, they're pronounced muck now," and then people started saying that. So
I totally forgot about that.
yeah, we stopped playing around with that. It is all caps though, and the reason for that is just because in all caps it more closely resembles the logo.
I mean, Muck is a pretty metal name. Did you consider just rolling with that?
Yeah, not bad.
Sure, sure. I mean, if only we were going for that.
Right. And guys, how would you describe the music of Mlke? What is Mlke?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't think Spencer and I ever had an easy time trying to explain it. I can tell you definitely what I think it's become in the simplest terms. I would call what we're doing now, or at least this current record, noise metal. We both have a deep love and history going back to at least my teens, noise rock, post-hardcore, everything like that. I mean, metal was probably my first love, even much earlier, but in my like high school years, noise rock hit me and just did a total fucking number on me, and it's never left me. That's like sort of my heart of hearts. Also, and I'll say one more thing, and then Spencer, you can add to it. I have a equally deep place in my heart for space rock like Spacemen 3, Spiritualized, and shoegaze. So it's kind of a combination of all those things that just naturally come out. I can't, like, we're not really attempting to be any of those things. Those are just what we love, and I think what we love just ends up coming out. I don't know, Spencer.
I totally agree with Scott on that. We tend to get categorized as a post-metal band, or a band that, sort of works post-rock into metal. And that is just kind of something that we arrived at organically in terms of how all of our different influences meshed when we, met and started writing music together. I totally agree with Scott on, noise rock, metal, space rock, and shoegaze. I definitely I come at music from, starting off playing in punk bands as a teenager, and got a lot of exposure to noise rock through that, but really kind of found it and clicked with it a little bit later, kind of in my college years, around the same time that I was getting, sort of like getting over my everything is punk rock, and if it's not punk rock, it sucks mode, and sort of branching out into metal and more of the post-hardcore stuff, and then just a lot of like avant-garde noise and, whatever else I can find that sounds ugly as hell. And so it's really fun to see how, with each kind of new thing that we write, all of the influences that we have kind of come together a little bit differently and kind of shape what we do in different ways. But yeah, I think ultimately noise metal, I think, is like that's what I would want to call it too. I think a lot of people would say that there's more of kind of a psyche or post-rocky element to it too, but I definitely think of what we do as being primarily noise metal.
I think that just one last thing, the funniest thing to me, and I don't care. I mean, you can call us whatever you want, but with the post metal label, in every review we've ever had, it's like 90% of the bands that they're saying we're influenced by, I've never heard. Like I still don't know what half of those bands sound like. So sure.
Mm-hmm.
I like the term noise metal. I was working with a friend on a project sometime before the pandemic. That was really influenced by like Swans.
Oh, sure.
But also like some like doom metal stuff like that. Zenigeva and Mlke and stuff like that. And,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were using the term noise metal just because it wasn't like Obviously there's like a noise rock side to it, but it's still very much rooted in that Sabbathy kind of like slow stuff. As far as your metal side, do you feel like the tempo has a lot to do with the metalness? Like there's something slow and doomy about a lot of your music?
That's yeah, yeah. I think that's why the Doom label always somehow makes it in, right, Spencer?
Yeah. Yeah, Doom and Sludge are kind of always a part of the conversation. I definitely think tempo has something to do with that. Vocal presentation, I think, has a lot to do with it as well. Yeah, you know, for whatever reason, even thinking about our influences that have nothing to do with metal or doom or sludge metal at all. Like I was just kind of having a moment thinking about it the other day, and I put on Leaves Turn Inside You by Unwound and was just kind of meditating on how absolutely brilliant the introduction to that record is in terms, starting up with like the tape reel kind of coming up to speed and then that prolonged sort of section of feedback and then coming into that very slow but kind of deliberate riff and like kind of thinking about that in the context of like the constellation of music that I listen to and how well aligned that feels with any of the like great kind of like doom or psych records that I really think of in terms of just the patience and the kind of weight that it presents. But
That's the word.
it's absolutely not metal and very much talking about Swans, kind of the same thing where like you have like some of the heaviest records ever made, but they are absolutely and like defiantly not metal records. But they really take their time and work with tempo, like tempo in a lot of different respects, but especially a lot of like slow, repetitive kind of tempo stuff. So I definitely, yeah, I think tempo is certainly a part of it, but there are also other markers there, heavy, like kind of heavier than average distorted guitars and more kind of like ugly vocal stuff.
Lower tunings.
Yeah.
I think patience is the key. We are a very patient band, and I think that's one of the main things that we take most seriously without ever really discussing it with each other.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the things that is always at the forefront of my mind when writing music, and it's something that I try to push myself a lot more in all the time is trying to be very conscious about when I change something that I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Because I definitely, if I record myself playing by myself and listen back to it, one of the things that I always think is like, dude, you got jumpy and you started moving around too much because you were afraid it was going to be boring and it didn't give the thing time to develop. So one of the things like I'm always trying to think about is like, how much longer can we stretch something out? How much longer can we sort of meditate on a theme and have it actually like pay off? And when does that repetition turn into some kind of transcendence?
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, Spencer, what was that woman that came up to us and said she had to leave because we put her in a trance? She
Yeah.
literally had to leave the club because she
Yeah.
felt uncomfortable with yeah, putting her in that state.
Mm.
The best compliment I could have been ever given.
Yeah, absolutely. That was I don't know whether she meant it as one, but I have always loved that story.
What brought the two of you together, and what were your intentions when you first founded Make?
God, it was a lot different. The intentions we were, I mean, Spencer was even younger. 10 years older than him, but like in my mind, we were both still babies. We met because of a mutual friend that I had run into. He was one of the first friends I had made when I first moved to the Triangle from New York. I had lived in Carborough first, which is Carborough, Chapel Hill, kind of the same thing. Hard to explain if you're not here. We met at like a bus stop, I guess, if memory serves. And I had mentioned, in our, oh, haven't seen you in a long time greeting, that I was thinking of starting a Doom type band, like a slow, heavy band. And he said, oh shit, I'm in a different band right now, but me and the bass player have been talking about doing the same thing. And that bass player was Spencer. And I think Spencer, you were still in college, right?
Yeah, definitely. I had to have been 19 or 20.
19.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, probably sophomore, junior year in college. Yeah, it's been a hot second. Yeah, Daniel was really like he was the guy who brought us together. And not too long after that, I think Scott came to a house show. We hung out a couple of times, but you came to that house show that Systems played at Cameron and Daniel's house and on Hannah Street. We wound up talking more then, and then not too long after that, we all started playing together, and stuff just started to click very fast in terms of the way that we all wanted to play and play together. I think was it was just a very organic and very quick sort of mind meld.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very organic. I don't think we actually really talked that much about what we wanted to do other than be, you know, in drop C tuning
Yeah.
and and very heavy. I think that's where that started, and we evolved very slowly over the course of the next couple years.
Do you feel on those early recordings was the angular noise rock type of riffing already prevalent, or do you feel like that's something you evolved into?
No, no, not at all. I think it was very far from my mind to incorporate that kind of stuff.
Same.
I was much more interested in incorporating like the space rock stuff into a metal band because Daniel was in the band at the time. He was doing more rhythm guitar. So for me, it was just kind of taking from an old space rock band of mine called Suntan from when I lived in Boston, which was like very like Spaceman 3 worship and shoegaze worship. And my biggest interest at the time was bringing that into a loud, like doomy metal band. It took a while before I think the world really had to start falling apart around COVID before the noise rock became kind of at the forefront instead.
Mm. Yeah, it kind of pokes out a little bit on Pilgrimage, but I never really thought to include that sort of thing in the music until a lot later too. That's, thinking about like how we got together again too. Like one of my big focuses at the time was doing something much slower and more deliberate because the band that Daniel and I were playing in before this was we were called Systems. It was sort of very much in the vein of like Circle Takes the Square and Converge and like the early Baroness stuff, like very mathy and technical, but sludgy. And I wanted to do something that felt slower and a little bit more meditative. And so for a while, I was not trying to get away from that, but trying to like have an outlet for something different. And I don't remember exactly when it was, but I do remember having this moment after way too much time had passed since we met and had become close friends and had been hanging out, like maybe a decade or something like that, when I was like, oh, you like Unwound too? Like for whatever reason, we just like never really talked all that much about it beyond just, maybe like cursory mentions or whatever. And that like really, yeah, kind of around the time COVID happened, I started like really going back and getting back into a lot of the sort of post-hardcore and noise rock stuff that I had been into before, but had kind of like fallen off with, not for any particular reason other than just lack of bandwidth, but really just sort of re-embracing my love for the Jesus Lizard and Unwound and that kind of stuff. And that really made its way into the music, I think.
guys write songs, how does it usually happen? Do you guys sit in a room together, or do you trade files back and forth?
Never files, sometimes riffs though. Like we will record riffs on our phone. And oftentimes I will just have something in my head and I need to just grab an acoustic really quick and try and figure out what was in my head, record a couple things, bring it to practice. Hey, do you guys think this is interesting? There's a lot of that from my end and Spencer's end. Primarily that's, from my end or his end. And then the other half is, yeah, just being together in a room and, maybe we start with those phone recordings or maybe we
Mhm.
just, I mean, gosh, in the old days, it would be like someone went outside to smoke. And I think, like maybe one of us just didn't and would be in the practice room coming up with a riff. And by the time everyone got back, be like, hey, you want to jam on this?
Mhm.
So, yeah, a lot of like, and it's mostly organic too, even if it is, a riff recorded on a phone. At no point am I ever coming in with a fully written song for people to just play along to. I don't think
Yeah.
that's very interesting. I mean, maybe it is for other people, and maybe there are a million bands that I'm into that do that, and I do find it interesting. I just don't think it's very interesting to do myself.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. I really like how collaborative and organic and kind of together our songwriting process is for the most part. We definitely, yeah, we'll record stuff and bring it into practice as kind of a jumping off point. I actually recorded something at work today. I work at a guitar shop, but I recorded something at work today. I'm stoked to bring to practice when we start writing again.
Heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, yeah, hot new riffs. But yeah, really, I think the most like premeditation that goes into it is, one of us will have an idea that we record in a voice memo or something like that. And then we get together and start working on that. And it usually goes one of two ways where either we decide like, okay, well, cool, what comes next? And we start trying to work the riff into like a bigger context and make more of a song out of it, or we'll take the riff and just jam on it for a really long time, play it ad nauseum and record that. We have our practice space rigged up so that we can get pretty good recordings of every practice now. And that way we can go back and listen to it and be like, oh, I really liked what we were doing here. Can we kind of work that into something? Or like, I wasn't really into like this section of it, but when it picked up here, I really like that. And it gives us the opportunity to be able to like look back at these moments of very like organic, spontaneous creation and be able to kind of sculpt them into something that's a little bit less ephemeral.
Yeah, I think the key is that we've learned is to always record, but to never trust yourself in the moment
Yeah.
and always listen back. And that it really has been the key to everything for the longest time.
Are the recordings like also phone recordings, or do you do like pre-pro demos in a DAW or something like that?
We've done that before, but it's mostly just phone or laptop. And the laptop situation is a little more elaborate now. Like John, our current drummer, has a setup. So, we have amps, cabinets mic'd, and, I'm not, Spencer probably knows more than me. I'm not sure what he's using,
Mm.
but they're much clearer than phone recordings. But for the longest time, it was literally just put a phone outside the practice room with the door closed. And it was good enough. It was good enough to listen back and be like, yeah, that idea is good or that idea is shit. And it worked. So
Mhm. Yeah, we definitely have a more pro setup now. John and our bandmate in another band called Vanishing Point, his name is Nick, really worked together and did an amazing job miking up our practice space. So now we have generally like Shure SM58s or 57s. I'm sorry, I always mix those up.
idiot.
On yeah, on each of the guitar cab, and maybe like a 58 or a Beta 52A on the bass cabs. The drum kit is mic'd up in there too. So we are at a point where we can do pretty like pretty in-depth demo recording where, we're all playing in a 15 by 15 foot room. So, there's plenty of bleed and stuff to go around. It's not final quality recording or anything like that. But it does give us the ability that we didn't have before to be able, if we were to kind of hear something and be able to lock in on it, we can isolate it and kind of like listen back to it in much more detail. And I know for my own part, that has helped me remember some parts that I never would have been able to call back, even in the days when we were recording stuff with a phone outside the room, just because the clarity is so strong that I can be like, oh, that's what I was doing. Okay, great.
So at the time we're having this conversation, the fourth Mlke album, Exegesis at the End of Time, is just about to be released by Accident Prone Records.
In a few hours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's start with, I think this is your first album in about a decade, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why so?
The hardest thing about that and that question and the answer is that it took a lot of being asked that question or asking it myself for me to wrap my head around how long 10 years actually is. When you get older, it doesn't seem as significant, but when you put it into generational context or the idea of the difference between a 10-year-old and a 20-year-old, it took a long time, and when it finally hit me, yeah, that's a significant amount of time. A, you don't process it the same way when you're getting older. B, and this goes to answer your actual question, we had something booked right like months before COVID. Our drummer had to back up for personal reasons. By the time we were able to book something again, the producer that we had worked with for the last two records gave up his studio and moved to New York, also for personal reasons. Immediately after that, COVID happened. So that's a huge chunk just in and of itself. During COVID, I was laid off from my job of like 8 years. And then a side project got started just to get out of isolation. The side project kind of took precedence for a while. Then we had a huge falling out with our previous drummer. That took a lot of time. And from there, we started Mlke back up, invited Aaron, who was part of the side project. And then it was like a lot of writing and just like re-becoming the band. Mm. And also at the end, I got laid off again. Had another job. So, but my point is though, like during all of that, for me, my focus was just kind of on survival, like just getting through to the next fucking day. And it didn't really occur to me like, oh shit, like 10 years is this amount of time. You know what I mean? For me, it was just like a slog of nebulous shit that I was wading through before I was able to do things I wanted to do again. That's the answer, man. It's not any more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's time flies when you're locked inside or something.
How much of this album was written just before the pandemic?
There is so the session that we had booked right before COVID is probably November 2019 or something like that.
I think it was January, actually.
Oh, was it really?
I think so, yeah.
Like that close in. It was really close.
Yeah.
We were going in to record an album or a part of an album that we had made that was at that time consisted of, I think it was about a 20-minute long, maybe 18-minute long kind of Winchester Mystery House of a song.
Longer, like probably 25 minutes.
Was it really that long? Yeah.
The 20 to 25, I think, yeah.
It was going to be side A of that record, and I think we were going to try to write like a couple of songs for side B and call it finished. And going back to it after the pandemic and listening to the demo recordings we had done for it, it just didn't work. It didn't feel right. there's a lot of material in there that I still really like, and I think we both still really like, and will probably continue to pull from, on future releases, just to be able to take the material we like and recontextualize it somehow.
We've done it twice.
It's we have done it a couple of times now. The final track on the album, The Augur, was the let's see, I guess probably the first 6-ish minutes of that song were going to be about the first 6-ish minutes of that piece, and then we took that and sort of we worked it into a different ending and just sort of found a way to make that song its own statement, sort of separate from all the other stuff that came after it on the other record. And then we have a new song that we've written since finishing work on this record that has another section from that piece in it too. So we'll probably wind up continuing to do that. I remember a lot of sections of that material that I really like and I think hold up really well. They just didn't work well together, and I think we were kind of trying to force them together because we wanted to take a bit of a different approach to songwriting that actually, funny enough, was actually a lot like the way that my previous bands had written, kind of just cobbling riffs together and figuring out transitions on the fly. And so ultimately, I think even though it's been a long time, I think what we're coming out with now is much better for having had the time to be able to look back at that stuff and just realize it didn't work.
Yeah, I think we never would have said this in those last 10 years, right? Like the last 10 years, I think it has been filled with a lot of like disappointment and regret and maybe resentment. A lot of emotions about that recording never having happened. But at this moment in time, and for the past couple of years, and I know Spencer will agree, I'm very glad that we never got that time booked.
Yeah,
Or I mean,
I am too.
had it booked, but it never happened. And I'm glad because I think that record would have been a mistake, which is a weird thing to say. I've never felt that way about anything I've ever released in any band before. But I think our eyes were bigger than our stomachs.
Yeah, I think we felt a lot of pressure too at that time because, with it kind of being hot on the heels of Pilgrimage and that album having generated good press and good reviews, I think we really wanted to keep striking while the iron was hot. And so we were really hoping to have another record ready roughly a year after Pilgrimage was done. And I think, at least for my own part, I think it allowed me to just kind of say like, well, a paper's never done till you turn it in, so this is ready. And ultimately, yeah, again, I don't think it was. And I think that all of this music, including the music that hopefully will pull from those sessions again and recontextualize, I think is better off for it.
To get to the meat of your question, there was some of the Augur that was written pre-pandemic, and then the song Chimera.
Oh, yeah,
We
right.
had released digitally only years and years and years ago on the Axis EP, which came out after Trephine, which was our first full length. We felt, for one thing, I lost my voice, so I actually couldn't do my vocals on it. Spencer did a good me impression, which awesome, but still that always lingered. And then there was something about it that it wasn't quite what it should have been, but we knew it was a really good song. And then we also just felt bad that it never got released on physical media. But most importantly, we wanted to start playing it regularly live again, because I think in our entire life as a band, we had only played it live twice. So that's why that got included on the record. But everything else was brand new.
It was cool too, going back to that song, and I rewrote a lot of my lyrics for that song to better suit the context of this record. And ultimately, I think the song still kind of means the same thing, but thematically, I felt good about being able to kind of seed it within the literary references of this album.
far did you get with those earlier sessions? Did you demo all the material?
No, it was literally the phone in the other room type shit,
Okay.
which was awful because, like I said, it was like 25 minutes. So to figure out your place on a voice memo on your phone.
We did have one nicer demo recording of that song.
Auger,
Yeah,
you're remembering something I don't
yeah,
remember.
I don't know if I still have it. I think it would be on my old MacBook, which I still have kicking around somewhere, but I have
Oh, something you did.
it was yeah, we got together one day at your house on Barclay Street, and I think like all we could really do was set up like two room microphones, but it was like enough to get a recording where we could actually distinguish parts from each other and hear what was going on a little better. I remember for some reason we had to stop in the middle, so it wound up being two tracks, and then we just kind of cobbled them together in post. But yeah, we had a demo for that stuff that will probably never see the light of day. It may or may not even exist as a digital file anymore, depending on the condition of that laptop. But yeah, I mean, we got the writing part of it complete, or at least what we sort of thought of as complete at the time, but never made a worthwhile recording of it.
So we touched on this a little bit, but can you guys tell me a little about the lyrical themes of the album? Is there an overarching concept?
Yeah, certainly. Scott, you are probably better equipped to talk about this than I am, honestly.
Yeah, so there's two main things that I think about. The first relating to the title of the record, sort of the idea that you, over the course of your lifetime, in a more fantastical setting, over the course of many lifetimes, humanity, or the best of humanity, has gained wisdom, learned lessons, created beautiful works, and the way the trajectory that we are on feels like we're eventually going to get to a place where it is just a cliff with a drop off and there's no one left to listen or appreciate. The more overarching thing, well, and first I should say, I'm a huge lit nerd. I was an English major when I was very young, and I'm just like a voracious reader of literature. And so a lot of the songs, either on this record or previous works, are inspired in part by what I've been reading at the time. And I just get very excited about what I'm reading as a work of art that I almost feel like it's like I want to consume it and have it become a part of myself. And so then it become, I try and take things from that and work them into our own art. And in doing that, we kind of created a thread, and using Borges and the labyrinthian theme and the Garden of Forking Paths, that there are a million possibilities or realities, or even as far as we know, like quantum, right, realities. And decisions you make one tiny little decision can lead you to a completely different reality or future. And most of those realities that we would want are getting blocked constantly through capitalism, mostly, or just self interested evil people. And I'll pass the mic to Spencer because I think he can be a little more eloquent about elaborating on that.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's like Scott reads a lot of literature, and I have a really hard time making myself read recreationally because of the way my brain works. But when I do, I tend to read a lot of political and social theory, and that really got ramped up again with with the pandemic and having a much more acute sort of understanding of the fact that all of the scaffolding that modern society exists upon is incredibly fragile and also incredibly oppressive. We have worked our way through this bizarre hyperlogia of sort of capitalist economics into a system that doesn't work for anybody except for a very small handful of people who now are so powerful that they have the power to ensure that that never changes. We are close enough to a number of very dangerous cliffs in terms of climate collapse and economic collapse and social unrest and extreme wage disparity that even if we wanted to try to force some kind of change out of this stuff, it would be really difficult to do because of the momentum that that capital and those capital holders have generated in terms of pushing all of us off of these cliffs. And thinking, when we were making this record, one of the things that almost kind of didn't really hit me until we were right about to actually record it was how we on this album, with the title being Exegesis, we do reference a lot of literature, but that literature spans a huge swath of time and a pretty wide variety of, like everything from fictional surrealism to literal just kind of esoteric but political theory with Guy Debord's Society of the Spectacle. And what struck me as I was kind of sitting there and looking at all these texts and looking at the lyrics that we'd written is how different they all are and how different all their contexts are, but how they all taken together paint a very strong picture that people have on some level understood what we know now for a very long time. Like none of our understanding that this is wrong is new. None of it is like even novel in any real way. And it really made me feel encouraged to continue, sort of working on this record and getting it out. It just this kind of synthesis of literature and how it melds with reality and how it speaks to the way that these various authors across time have understood the concepts that have basically led us to where we are now, and kind of thinking about how we've been warned. We just haven't really heard it as well as we've needed to. So that is a lot of my lyrical content on the record. There's definitely some hope in there. It's a glimmer. So not too much, but there's a little.
There's always potential, like, right? The human condition is that there is massive potential, but it is constantly being curbed purposefully.
Yeah.
Scott, it's interesting the way you describe the road not taken or the path that's not taken. In a sense, it's the story of the album itself, right? Like, these songs existed in a very different way previously, and this could have been a very different album if things had worked out for you guys, circa 2019, 2020.
I never even thought of that, but yeah.
Same. Yeah, really well put.
Yes.
So we spoke about the way you guys write music. In terms of the way that you write the lyrics, how does that work? What is the process like for that? Do you each handle individual songs, or do you?
You don't want to hear my answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, broadly, the way that I tend to think of it is that we focus on music first, and while we're writing the music, we tend to do it from a pretty early stage with some concept of what the song is going to be about in mind, because we want the actual sort of sonic footprint of what we're writing to match up with the conceptual matter that we're working with. So in the process of writing the music, each of us will kind of have these, like, I don't know, I don't want to describe it as Quaker-esque, but like we'll have these moments where we'll feel moved to have a vocal section And we'll kind of note as we're writing, like, hey, I think we should probably put vocals here. And then where we each decide we want to do vocals, we'll write our own lyrics. And at the end of the process, kind of compare notes and make sure that it all works together on some level.
This is an exclusive. No, I've never said this out loud before, but if you've seen us live ever, there's a chance that everything that you are hearing us sing is literally nothing.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just
it's
gibber.
absolutely true.
I write 90% of my lyrics, if not more, when we're actually in the studio. I'll have the general like cadence and rhythm of what I'm doing. And I will, like Spencer said, I'll know what the song is about and I'll know what I want to talk about, but I won't actually and this is intentional too. Like there's something about I mean, my whole ADHD life is like waiting for to the very last minute to do things, but with this, there's something that's more exciting to me about being in the studio and having something that's not completely finalized, right? So I will be most of the way there, at least thematically, but the actual lyrics usually don't come until I'm actually forced to be on record saying something. And I don't feel alone. And the reason I think I've always felt okay about this is because one of my musical heroes is Drive Like Jehu. And I remember Rick Froberg talking about doing this very same thing. And so from a very young age, I thought that's okay. That's an okay thing to do.
I'm typically am very much in that same boat, but for this album, I actually wound up writing my lyrics a couple days before we went into the studio, and I'll tend to have like little phrases or snippets or something that I will have in there that I build the rest of the lyrics around, like something that will kind of knock me in the head while I'm doing a vocal part and be like, oh, that would be a cool phrase to have here. Right now we're writing a song where the phrase rotting on the vine is it keeps coming back to me and I'm working it in. But they don't really tend to get finalized until very late in the process.
Do you guys do like vocal patterns or anything like that while you're jamming? Just like yelling syllables into
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But but interestingly, up until this like past year or so, we just never bothered miking ourselves up in the practice space. I think a lot of it sorry, it's going to take me a long time to get to what I want to say here. A lot of what happens in this band to me is I love leaving things up to chance or like beautifully occurring happenstance or like being in the studio telling the producer just hit record, and sometimes it's just going to be nothing, and sometimes it's going to produce a lot of really usable material, and none of it you planned ahead, so you don't know what you're making. You assemble it later or use it or not use it. And I think there's something that like music at its core to me is a type of magic. Like it is being pulled from wherever. And I feel differently about any other art that I'm into or produce. And so leaving things up to the moment that it's actually happening is really important to me, but I don't want to leave everything that way. So that kind of explains lyrics. And it explains also why we never really mic'd up and why I never pushed for it. Because one of my favorite things, and this is what I was getting at, is being in the studio. And because we've never been mic'd up, I don't know what Spencer's vocals are. And so it's him in the actual booth doing his thing. And I remember there was one time where Chris swiveled around in his chair and looked at me, and I was like, I don't know, this is awesome. And I love that. That's so much like I don't like to me that is so much more exciting. And I know it's probably not conducive to great results for everybody or even us all of the time, but it has worked for the most part. And I think really, and to be serious about it, there is a great level of trust that we've always had that we never need to police what anyone else in the band is doing. We just trust that everyone is going to do the greatest thing that they can. And we trust the reason that we're all making music together is because we already have that feeling.
tell me a little bit about working with Chris, who engineered and mixed the album?
Yeah, well, Spencer knew him from like when they were little dudelets.
Yeah, we met when I was in high school, and both of us were in high school, and we were both playing in punk bands around the area. And I always thought Chris was a really cool guy. We wound up hanging out at shows a lot, always loved seeing him. And so we made our first record with our buddy Nick, and actually first record and then the EP that came after it. And then after that, we wanted to try something a little bit different. Not that we didn't like working with Nick, but just, might as well just, see what a different approach provides in terms of different results. Chris had mentioned to me that he was recording bands and he would really like to record us. And so we made the Golden Veil with him, and it was it was a fantastic experience. We could tell from like very early on that we all had a really good time working together, but we also got stuff done, and that Chris has a brilliant ear for recording in general, but also for what we want to do. And that, what Scott was just saying about the trust that we have in each other, I feel like extends to him as well, because it's like in the time that we've worked together, his ability to we've had moments where we were working on some music and he would look back at us and say, like, I can tell you're not totally pleased with this. What do you want to do with it?
Or even just tell us outright, this part isn't working.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, we had something on the Golden Veil and I think it probably was a moment where we felt unsure of it, but I don't even think gotten to the point of conveying that. And he just looked at us and was like, this isn't it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I am always too close to know if anything that I'm doing is good or bad or stupid.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation, but what Chris brought to the table was that producer mentality, and not everyone is trying to do that.
Right.
So that's not a slight against anyone else that we've ever worked with, but Chris explicitly was that, and we loved it. I want, like, please tell me I'm fucking up.
Yeah.
If you don't tell me, then who is being served by it?
Yeah, it's so easy when you're writing music to or I guess really not easy so much, but it's so difficult to be able to look at it objectively because you're so close to it for such a long time that really any concept. I mean, it's like looking at your child. It's like, is my kid the ugliest kid in the room? Like, it's like there's just no way to have an objective, like, sort of view of it. And so having Chris, who
it'd be kind of cool to have the ugliest kid.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of having the ugliest kid in the room, not at all. But yeah, it's the way that we worked with Chris, I thought was super great, really organic. And then yes, so he shut legitimate business down in either 2020 or maybe late 2019. Went up to New York to go to grad school.
Oh, dude, it was like January 2020.
Was it that early? Jesus.
Yeah, that's when we were booked. Yeah.
So when we started talking about making this record, Scott and I were both like, well, if there's any way we can get Chris, we should do it. And so we reached out to him. He was going to be in North Carolina for the summer and had worked at other.
Reached out as kind of a lark in the first place.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I just looked at him and was like, hey, we'll fly you down. Expecting him to be like, yeah, haha, I'm honored. But he actually said, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So it was on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he was super cool. They came down and recorded us at a studio that he has engineered at before. So he was very familiar with the room. It's a beautiful studio in Kernersville, North Carolina, called the Fidelatorium. And we got to have another 4 days of cutting up and having a good time. And then a record popped out.
I feel like we shouldn't bury the lead there. That's Mitch Easter, who kind of brought REM to the world's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of part of that jangle pop indie movement itself in the 80s. really fucking humble, cool guy. Like for the legend that is contained in his being, he would come in every day and check in and just shoot the shit. And I don't think many bands like us have ever recorded there. You know, I remember I was about to like most of the record. This record is live. I would say like 85 to 90% of it is live. We did
Mhm.
like all the vocals are tracked. There's a little bit of guitar tracking and the tiniest amount of overdubs. When I was about to do some extra guitar tracking, he came in. I was the only person in the room, and he was like asking what I was tuned, and he said something like, "Oh yeah, like you're tuned to drop D," and I was like, "No, we're drop C," and he was like, just like not the world that he exists in. I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, you know, again, look him up. Google Mitch Easter, and you'll see why. You know, just trying to pretend like we weren't starstruck.
Yeah, really, just yeah, unbelievably cool guy. Very nice. It was very cool. Just to occasionally.
Gear geeking with Spencer,
Oh yeah, totally. It was great.
the biggest gear geek in our band.
He has. I do a little bit of like amp tech work, and on the day that we were getting set up to record guitars, we were having some trouble with one of Scott's amps, and so I pulled it out and started testing tubes. And Mitch came into the room and was like, "Ooh, I have this really cool thing to show you," and pulls out this box that is like it looks completely waterproof, and it's like bigger than a military footlocker kind of thing. And he opened it up, and it was a U.S. Navy submarine tube tester with just an incredible number of sockets and knobs on it and everything. And we just got to hang out and kind of geek out about it for a second. I was thrilled. It was it was really
We had a
cool.
lot of really cool things, and actually, one of them made its way onto the record. The reverb chamber.
Yes. Yeah, there is a very cool, absolutely enormous, like probably 4 feet high by 10 to 12 feet long plate reverb machine in the studio there. And that makes an appearance at the end of Chimera?
Shh,
Chimera.
let people figure it out.
I mean, nowhere.
Do you guys double track your vocals? Not in the sense that you layer your individual performances on top of each other, but do you do two tracks of vocals for each vocal line?
No.
Okay.
No. Yes, single track on vocals. I think we might have double tracked them for the Golden Veil, maybe a little bit on Pilgrimage of Loathing too, but at least yeah, for this record, all single tracked.
Yeah, not me. I don't. I can't remember what all of you've done. I've done that in previous bands, but never this band.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember. I remember toying with it, but I can't remember what we wound up doing for the earlier records. But yeah, this one was all single takes.
We really like. We were set on. We booked 4 days, and we kind of accidentally, like, we were very set on this, like, what we were going to accomplish, and based on how we've been able to quickly accomplish things in the past, we kind of laid things out. And I remember explicitly saying to everybody, "Don't worry about it. This is just a scratch take." But we kept everything.
Mhm.
There's very, very little extra tracking or overdubs on the entire record. It's almost all like scratch takes, except for the vocals, which again are, I mean, almost scratch takes on their own, at least for me, because I lost my voice very, very early on the first night because I was trying to hit something that I did live and it just wasn't working.
Was recording live Chris's idea or your idea?
Neither. It literally, like, we got done with most of the, like, because normally you play with the drummer and that's just the drum tracks, right? You scrap everything else and then you do tracking. But we accidentally just performed pretty well and we kept those takes.
Okay, interesting.
Like, none of that was planned.
Do you want to say anything about the gentleman who mastered the album?
Brad Boatwright,
And he did an incredible job.
impeccable resume. I mean, insane resume. But he was recommended by Chris because he's worked with Chris for at least enough that, like, he was on. I think Chris gave us like his top two I don't even think three. He gave
Mm.
us his top two recommendations. And I looked at what he had done and I was like, well, this is the guy I want. And there were a couple other decisions in there, but I think based also on their working relationship, that he was going to know how Chris, because Chris didn't just produce and engineer, he mixed the record. So we thought, well, Brad has gotten material he's gotten files from Chris before. He knows how to work with these files. And then again, adding that to his existing resume, it was kind of a no-brainer to me. And then, every time I hear someone who's good at mastering returning tracks, I think Aaron, our other band member, said it best. It's just like mastering is magic.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah, he did an awesome job. Like we were all very excited when we got those back.
Hmm.
What did you want Chris and Brad to bring to the final production? What did you want the sound of the album to be?
The sound is so stupid. I want it to not sound like what actually happened. So make it sound like it wasn't actually just recorded live on the fly in 4 days. And it'll probably always sound like that, especially if you know that. I think you now anyone with that knowledge can maybe hear that if you're looking for it. Like maybe my tremolo picking on one part isn't as perfect as the next one, but they did as good of a job with that and making it just sound like like a nice big, studio record. That's all I want. I'm very simple. I want the end product of our record to sound like it was recorded in a studio by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, same. Basically, if it sounds intentional, then I'm happy with it. I never really thought about the question of how I wanted this record to sound in any real way other than, well, I want to do it with Chris. You know what I mean? I just the way that Chris works with our material and making records where they're not so deep in the space where they're recorded that that's all you hear, but you do have a feel for the room and some sense of presence and like it the way that he works, I feel like does a really fantastic job of putting the listener in the room with the band. And that's something I've always really appreciated about his work, and it's something that I really like as a factor on this record and all the other records we've made with him.
So the album is just about to come out, and you guys have some release shows planned. Do you have anything else planned for the rest of the summer? Any tours or any one-offs or maybe even festival appearances?
Yes. Gosh, I don't even know if I'm at liberty to say this yet. There's this is what I'll say. There's another local band that is on a pretty big label who have gotten a lot of attention over the last decade or so, and we are playing their release show coming up very shortly after hours.
Yeah, it's in July, I think July 19th, maybe.
I think it's like mid late July or something. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think because of putting a lot of our attention on our own release, we haven't really been trying to book a lot this year outside of trying to post book so that we can tour the record. But that's also hard when you've been gone for 10 years, trying to remind people that you existed. And then Spencer had a lead, but I don't think we should talk about that until it's solidified. But a very cool band that we'll hopefully be playing with in September. We're playing, Spencer, help my memory, on Saturday after our release show. Confusion.
Yeah, Static Age in Asheville. Yeah.
Yeah, at Static Age.
Contusion and Harsh Realm too, who if you haven't heard them, listen to them. They are an absolutely fantastic death metal band from Asheville. Really good stuff. I have been wanting to play with them for a good long time, so it's a really exciting show for me.
Yeah. But nothing too far booked. We're just trying to get through this little period and then try and hit the books after that.
Hmm.
The other North Carolina band, does their name rhyme with Balin Forms?
It might.
Yeah.
So by the time people hear this episode, Exegesis at the End of Time will be out through Accident Prone Records. Scott and Spencer, please tell everyone how they can get the new album. What's the best way to get it?
You can either go to the Accident Prone website, which is the label that is putting the record out, and order the vinyl or the cassette. Or you can go to our personal Bandcamp. And funny enough, people make fun of us all the time for the name of our band being ungoogleable. But if you type Make into Bandcamp, we are one of the first results. So you can just go into Bandcamp and type Make, and you'll find us. And you can order it there, and you can get to the label's website there as well. And I think all the orders are going to go through the label anyway.
If you're more of a URLs person, the URL is thebandmake.bandcamp.com, and that is also our Instagram page as well. We figured it was a handy little thing to carry over.
Yeah, if you hang out on subreddit r URL dudes. I'm just kidding. Maybe that's a thing.
Just to clarify, no special characters in Make in the...
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to say anything about the vinyl that Accident Prone is putting out?
Well, we are very proud of the aesthetics of it. I don't want to talk too much because part of the point of what we did is for people to experience it in different stages and different ways. Let's just say it's intentionally not obvious at first glance. And I hope in the way that people will watch shows like From or Lost, that they will put theories together, but whether or not that happens and people figure it out. But it's a very good looking physical product, and the record itself is 180 grams, so it won't warp on you. But, please don't stack records on top of it.
Yeah.
And the tape looks really good too. It's got a really nice J card. The guy named Ryan Smull, who worked with Accident Prone, took my art and files and did the actual layout that went to press, and he did an incredible job.
And if people want to follow you guys online and get updates on the tours and shows that you mentioned, you're the band Make across all the socials?
Yes, and unfortunately, that just pretty much means Instagram because we have permanently deleted ourselves from the shit sphere that is social media.
Yeah.
We had to keep one thing in order to be able to spew our nonsense, but yeah, it's pretty much just Instagram these days.
Yeah, if anyone out there is thinking about deleting their social media accounts, do it. It will enhance your life so much. I cannot say enough how much better my life is without Facebook.
Guys, it was really nice speaking with you. We're about to get cut off very quickly, but I just wanted to thank you again for your time. And I think the record's really great, and glad that you guys were able to get it out.
Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolute joy talking to you.
Take care, guys.
Back at you.
Bye.